Welcome, players. Reporting to you live on Channel 21. I am Celine Casillas.
And I am Jamie.
And I'm Nayeli. Today we'll be taking a step back into reviewing the end of World War I.
We experienced various health issues that mostly ended in death. There wasn't one, but multiple illnesses. Let's begin by the trench foot. This illness was caused by wet, cold, and insanitary areas. It would lose blood circulation. Men and soldiers stood for hours without being able to take off their shoes and socks. And the socks had to be changed every few hours. And if they weren't, it would lead to amputating their foot.
Trench foot killed approximately 2,000 to 75,000 American and British soldiers. And one fun fact is that even today you can get trench foot if your feet are exposed to wet and cold areas for too long.
Some physical changes they noticed were blisters, blotchy skin, and skin tissue that dries and falls off.
Some other things you could experience are pain when exposed to heat, tingling and numbness, and even your feet would feel more heavy than usual, which is pretty weird.
Let's just say that it wasn't easy. It was a terrible disease, although it didn't seem that bad at the time. But here are some few pictures in this situation that you guys can evaluate of how bad it was.
There was not many medical professionals back then, but trench foot was mostly treated with bed rest, and most soldiers were also treated with foot washes that were made from lead. If it became better, olive oil was applied, but if it did not get better, it would sadly be cut off. That way, circulation problems were not cured anywhere else in the body. Not only was there trench foot, like mentioned before, there was also trench fever, which was a disease caused by lice all over the body.
The disease was first discovered in 1915 and ended right when war ended in 1918. It would give headaches, very high fever, sore skin, and aching muscles. It was also very tough to move your eyeballs. That caused a lot of pain for them.
That disease was very painful and took approximately 4 to 12 weeks to get better. Doctors would know if they had a very high fever, had loss of energy, skin rashes, and sensitivity in the skins, as mentioned before. Medical officers would put down trench fever as pyrexia and would be given pills to get rid of it. But the pills wouldn't always help. And soldiers could not return to work. And because they were way too ill, they had to be taken to the hospital and rest until they regained strength.
One fun fact was that illness can occur after many years, even after it had already been treated. These times were tough, that there was even diseases that were not physical but mental too. Shell shock was one of them. Soldiers would feel very uncomfortable and scared when they heard noises or explosions of guns.
People thought that shell shock would be over when the war was over, but at the end of World War I, 20,000 men were still suffering from shell shock.
Doctors couldn't find any physical damage. They figured that it was caused by exploding shells, like mentioned before, but then later they started to realize that it was something more intense than that.
People who suffered from shell shock were not able to eat or sleep, and there were many stories of people who actually described their physiological pain. And the poem of survivors explains one story about how a guy felt about the situation.
His poem really was deep, and we can say that shell shock was seen as a sign of weakness. And also something very sad is that many soldiers were shot by their own side after being convicted or charged.
But do you remember the flu in 1918 that infected 500 million people worldwide and killed 20 to 50 million people?
Oh yeah, I remember. It attacked the whole respiratory system. It was called the influenza virus, and it invaded their lungs and caused pneumonia.
When an infected person coughed, sneezed, or talked, bacteria would be transmitted into the air, and people would inhale all that air, and that would affect them as well.
The plague appeared in two phases. One phase occurred in spring 1918, which was 3-day fever. It came without warning, and there were not many deaths. But then again, in the fall, the disease appeared again, and it was more severe.
The disease was striking so fast and was getting out of control that the doctors could not identify what it was and why it was happening. People died within hours and others after a few days. Their lungs filled with fluid and suffocated them. This disease was mostly deadlier to the elderly and infants, and it was honestly the worst flu ever existed and the deadliest in modern history.
And last but not least, there was trench mouth disease. Trench mouth was a gum disease caused by bacteria in the mouth that was developed over a period of time.
People got that disease because they were vulnerable and unable to get proper oral health care.
But not just because they had poor oral health, but also because they were exhausted, emotionally stressed. They used tobacco and they wouldn't get tested much.
This disease was terrible because it got to the point where it was very painful to swallow. It was very uncomfortable and was treated with salt water rinses in the infected part of the mouth.
To end today's review of the end of the world war with many images in our head, we are going to ask these couple of questions.
What were the most common diseases, if you remember, and how did it affect the Great War?
Until next time on
This
Channel
is Channel 1.
Channel 21. I'm Jamie.
I'm Nayeli.
And I'm Celine Casillas.
Deuces.
Peace out!
Welcome, Playboys, reporting to you live on Channel 21. Yeah! Welcome, Playboys, reporting to you live on Channel 21. I am Celine Casillas.
And I'm Naomi Martin.
Why? It's so funny.